Let's start from the very beginning of the trailer, because the way it opens tells you everything you need to know about the tone of Season 3. It doesn't ease you in gently. It doesn't give you a soft, quiet moment to settle into. It throws you straight into chaos. And it does it with a confidence that immediately tells you the writers know exactly what they are doing with this story. The very first shot we get is a wasteland we haven't seen before. It's not the familiar stretch of destroyed California we spent 2 seasons getting comfortable with. This looks colder, harsher, more isolated. The sky has a different quality to it, heavier somehow, like the atmosphere itself is warning you to turn back. And if you've been paying attention to everything we learned in the Season 2 finale, you already know exactly where this is. Colorado. The Ghoul is in Colorado, and the moment you realize that, the entire trailer shifts in meaning. Because Colorado in the Fallout world is not a place you go for a vacation. It is a place you go when you have absolutely nothing left to lose, or when the one thing you've been chasing for 200 years might finally be within reach. And for the Ghoul, that's exactly the situation. He's been surviving on pure stubbornness and radiation for longer than most civilizations last, and now he's walking into a territory that even seasoned wasteland veterans would think twice about entering. The trailer doesn't show us exactly what he finds there right away. It's smarter than that. Instead, it gives us glimpses, shadows in the background, movement behind destroyed buildings, something that suggests Colorado is very much alive with danger, and the Ghoul is walking straight into the middle of it with nothing but his guns and whatever is left of his humanity after 2 centuries of surviving the worst the wasteland has to offer. And then we cut to Lucy. And this is where I genuinely had to pause the trailer, because the Lucy we see in Season 3 is not the same Lucy we met in Season 1, or even the Lucy we said goodbye to at the end of Season 2. There is something different in her eyes. Something harder. Something that makes complete sense when you remember everything she went through, everything she saw, everything she was forced to do. She watched her father choose mind control over his own daughter. She made the decision to implant that chip herself. She has been carrying that weight since the finale, and the trailer makes it very clear that it has changed her. She is not broken, but she is not the bright-eyed vault dweller who climbed out of Vault 33 with a Pip-Boy and a smile anymore either. She is something in between. Someone who has seen too much to go back to who she was, but who hasn't completely given up on who she wants to be. That tension is written all over her face in every single frame she appears in during this trailer, and it is absolutely gripping to watch. What makes it even more interesting is the moment in the trailer where we see Lucy moving through what looks like a vault corridor, but it doesn't look like any vault we've seen before. The walls are different. The lighting is different. There are signs of things going wrong inside this vault, and not in a subtle way. We're talking about clear evidence that Steph's Phase 2 is already in motion. And that realization hit me like a punch to the chest. Because Phase 2 is not just a political power move inside a bunker. Phase 2 means real people, real vault inhabitants, are going to suffer. Resources are going to be cut. Control is going to tighten. And Steph, who we now know was once married to Hank and is very likely Lucy's own mother, is the one holding the lever. The trailer shows us a brief shot of Steph that sends a chill down your spine. She is not the nervous, desperate character we first encountered. She has fully stepped into something darker. She looks certain, calm in a way that is far more frightening than any angry villain could ever be. Because calm means she has already made her decisions and she is completely at peace with them. That is the most dangerous kind of person in any story. And Season 3 is putting her front and center as one of the primary forces our characters are going to have to deal with. And while all of this is happening on the human side of the story, the trailer starts layering in the bigger picture. The war in the wasteland. And when I say war, I don't mean small skirmishes between raider gangs. I mean a full-scale conflict between multiple powerful factions, all moving toward the same collision point at the same time. The New California Republic, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Legion, the Enclave operating from the shadows, and Mr. House calculating every move from New Vegas. All of them are in play. All of them have something to gain and something to lose. And the trailer gives you just enough of each faction to remind you they exist and terrify you about what happens when they finally meet. The shots we get of NCR soldiers are striking because they look battle-worn already, like they've been fighting something we haven't seen yet and they're barely holding on. That detail alone raises about 10 new questions about what has been happening in the wasteland between the end of Season 2 and wherever Season 3 picks up. And I need answers. Now let's talk about the moment in the trailer that I genuinely did not see coming, and I mean that in the most literal way possible. Because just when you think you have a rough idea of where this season is heading, the trailer throws something at you that completely resets everything you thought you knew. And that moment involves Maximus. Our boy, Maximus, who ended Season 2 standing tall against a Deathclaw with nothing but a pipe and a shield, proving to everyone, including himself, that he was a true knight, regardless of what armor he was wearing. The trailer picks up with him and immediately makes one thing crystal clear. The wasteland is done going easy on him. Whatever Maximus faces in Season 3 is operating on a completely different level compared to anything he has encountered before, and the trailer is not shy about showing you that. We get a sequence of shots featuring Maximus that are genuinely breathtaking in terms of scale. And what strikes me immediately is that he is not in power armor for most of what we see. He is out there in the open, exposed, fighting alongside people rather than hiding behind steel. And that choice feels completely intentional from a storytelling perspective because it continues the arc that Season 2 was building for him. Maximus was never meant to be the guy who wins because of his equipment. He was always meant to be the guy who wins because of who he is underneath everything. And Season 3 seems determined to test that idea to its absolute limit. The situations the trailer puts him in look overwhelmingly dangerous. We are not talking about one enemy or one problem. We are talking about the kind of chaos that breaks most people before they even get a chance to react. And watching Maximus move through it with that same stubborn determination he has always had is one of the most exciting things this trailer gave us. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Because the trailer hints very strongly that Maximus is not going to be operating alone this season. There are brief moments where you can see him alongside NCR soldiers, and the dynamic between them looks complicated in the best possible way. Remember, the NCR saved him at the end of Season 2. They rode in at exactly the right moment and pulled him back from what looked like certain death. That creates a debt, and more importantly, it creates a relationship. And relationships in the wasteland are never simple. They always come with conditions and expectations and the constant quiet question of whether the person standing next to you is actually on your side or just using you until they don't need you anymore. The trailer suggests Maximus is going to be navigating exactly that kind of uncertainty throughout Season 3, and I think that tension is going to make his storyline one of the most compelling things about the new season. And then there is the Brotherhood of Steel. Because we cannot talk about this trailer without addressing what is easily the most unsettling development it revealed. At the end of Season 2, we got that end credit scene with Quintus, and we heard those words, "Quintus the Destroyer is born." And at the time, even knowing what that name suggested, it was hard to fully grasp what it meant for the future of the story. The trailer answers that question in the most alarming way possible. What we see of the Brotherhood of Steel in Season 3 footage is not the Brotherhood we have come to know over the course of this show. Something has shifted inside that organization. The structure, the discipline, the sense of order that always existed even within their ruthlessness, it all feels like it is cracking from the inside. And Quintus appears to be the reason why. The shots we get of him in the trailer are brief, but they are enough. There is an intensity to the way he carries himself that goes beyond confidence. It looks like someone who has decided that the old rules no longer apply and that whatever he is planning does not have limits. What scares me most about Quintus is not what the trailer explicitly shows us. It is what it implies. Because the Brotherhood of Steel with a leader like Quintus at the helm is not just a military threat to the other factions in the wasteland. It is a wild card in the truest sense of the word. The NCR, the Legion, even Mr. House can all be analyzed and predicted to some degree because they follow recognizable patterns of power and self-interest. But a Brotherhood faction led by someone who has given himself a name like the Destroyer and who appears to have thrown out the conventional playbook entirely is something none of the other sides are fully prepared for. And the trailer seems to know this. The way it frames the Brotherhood of Steel footage feels deliberately unsettling. Like it wants you to walk away from those few seconds feeling deeply uncertain about what Quintus is capable of, because that uncertainty is exactly what the other characters in this world are going to be feeling throughout the season. And speaking of characters feeling uncertain, let's talk about Norm. Because after everything that happened to him in the Season 2 finale, watching him show up in this trailer felt like a genuine relief mixed immediately with a fresh wave of worry. Norm has always been one of the most underestimated characters in this entire show. He is quiet where other characters are loud. He is observant where others are reactive. And the vault he has been surviving in has given him a very specific and very dark education in how power works when it is completely unchecked. The trailer gives us a glimpse of Norm that suggests he is about to use everything he has learned. He looks more focused than we have ever seen him. More determined, like someone who has stopped waiting for someone else to fix things and has decided to take things into his own hands. And given that his sister is out in the wasteland and Claudia needs help, and the vaults are about to enter a phase of brutal authoritarian control, Norm's storyline in Season 3 might end up being the emotional core of the entire season in a way that nobody is quite expecting yet. Now let's get into the part of this trailer that had me completely frozen in my seat, because this is where things stop being exciting and start being genuinely frightening. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment to everyone who put this season together. Because a trailer that makes you feel actual dread, actual worry for characters you care about, is doing something right. And this trailer earns that dread completely. It earns it through a sequence of moments that build on each other so carefully, so deliberately, that by the time you reach the end of it, you realize your jaw has been slowly dropping for the last 40 seconds, and you didn't even notice. That is the kind of storytelling craft that separates a good show from a genuinely great one. And Fallout Season 3 is looking like it wants to plant itself firmly in that second category. Let's talk about the Enclave. Because out of every faction this trailer touches on, the Enclave is the one that is handled with the most restraint, and that restraint is exactly what makes them so terrifying. Every other faction in this war is visible. The NCR has soldiers you can see marching and fighting. The Brotherhood of Steel has Quintus standing in front of you with that cold certainty in his eyes. The Legion has Lurda Leggett moving through the wasteland with the kind of confidence that comes from having already taken what she wants by force. But the Enclave? The Enclave exists in the shadows of this trailer in a way that feels completely intentional. You sense them more than you see them. There are moments where something happens on screen and your brain quietly says, that was the Enclave behind that, even though nobody said their name and no logo appeared on screen. That kind of presence, that ability to make an audience feel a threat without fully revealing it, is incredibly difficult to pull off, and the trailer does it almost effortlessly. And what makes the Enclave even more dangerous in the context of Season 3 is the Phase 2 situation. Because think about what Phase 2 actually means when you put it next to an organization like the Enclave. Steph is activating Vault Tech's next stage of control over the vaults. She is about to turn enclosed populations of people into something between a resource and an experiment. And the Enclave, who have always operated with that cold, calculating belief that they are the true inheritors of America and that everyone else is either a tool or an obstacle, would look at Phase 2 and see an opportunity. A population of people already trapped underground, already being controlled, already being conditioned. That is not a problem for the Enclave. That is a gift. And the trailer hints at this connection in a way that is subtle enough that you might miss it the first time, but hits you like a freight train the second time you watch it. There is a moment, brief and easy to overlook, where we see what appears to be Enclave technology inside a vault environment. And if that means what I think it means, then the threat in Season 3 is not just political or military. It is something much more personal and much more horrifying for every single person still living underground. Now let's bring it back to the Ghoul, because his section of the trailer is the one that I keep rewinding and rewatching more than any other. And it is not because it is the most action-heavy or the most visually spectacular, although it is certainly both of those things. It is because of what it communicates emotionally underneath all the noise and the danger. The Ghoul has been the most fascinating character in this entire show from the moment we first saw him, because he exists in this impossible space between monster and hero, between the man he used to be and the creature the wasteland turned him into. And Colorado is where all of that comes to a head. The trailer shows us the Ghoul moving through environments that feel genuinely hostile in a way that even the worst parts of California never quite managed. There is something about Colorado in these shots that feels deeply wrong. Not just dangerous in the way the wasteland is always dangerous, but wrong in a way that suggests the rules of survival that the Ghoul has spent 2 centuries mastering might not fully apply here. And underneath all of that physical danger is the emotional weight of why he is there in the first place. Barbara and Janie, his wife and daughter who he believed were dead for 200 years, who turned out to be alive, or at least were alive, when that Colorado postcard was left in that capsule. The trailer does something really clever with this thread because it doesn't resolve it or give you easy comfort. It keeps you in exactly the same uncertain place the Ghoul himself is in. Every time we see him in Colorado, there is this quiet desperation underneath the toughness, this sense of a man who has survived everything the world could throw at him, but who is genuinely terrified of what he might find at the end of this particular road. Because finding Barbara and Janie alive would mean everything. And finding out they are gone, really gone this time with no postcard and no hope left, might finally be the thing that breaks him completely. The trailer understands that tension, and it plays it absolutely perfectly, giving you just enough to keep you hoping while never letting you feel safe about the outcome. And then there is a moment in the trailer that connects the Ghoul's storyline to something much larger than his personal search, and it is the moment that made me sit up the straightest out of everything we saw. Without giving away too much detail, there is a sequence that strongly suggests the Ghoul is not just going to stumble into Colorado and quietly search vaults while keeping his head down. Something in Colorado pulls him directly into the middle of the larger conflict. Something connects his personal mission to the war that is spreading across the wasteland. And when you think about who the Ghoul is, what he knows, what he experienced before the bombs fell, what his relationship with Mr. House means in the grand scheme of everything happening, it starts to make a terrifying kind of sense. The Ghoul is not just a man looking for his family in Season 3, he is a piece on a board that multiple very powerful and very dangerous players want to control, and Colorado might be exactly where they come to collect him. So here we are at the part of the trailer that brings everything together, and I have to be completely honest with you, this is the section that left me the most speechless. Because everything we talked about, the Ghoul in Colorado, Lucy's transformation, Maximus going to war, Norm fighting to survive, Steph's dictatorship, Quintus the Destroyer, the Enclave operating from the shadows, Mr. House calculating every move from New Vegas, all of it converges in the final moments of this trailer into something that feels genuinely overwhelming in scale. And not overwhelming in a messy, unfocused way. Overwhelming in the way that only happens when a story has been building its pieces carefully and patiently for long enough that when they finally start moving toward each other, the collision feels both inevitable and completely shocking at the same time. That is what the final stretch of this trailer delivers. And it delivers it with a confidence that tells you Season 3 knows exactly what it is and exactly where it is going. Let's start with Mr. House. Because out of every development this trailer revealed, the full emergence of Mr. House as an active player in the Wasteland conflict is the one that changes the mathematics of everything else the most dramatically. We knew from the end of Season 2 that the Ghoul had awakened him. We knew that New Vegas was about to become relevant to the larger story in a way it hadn't been before. But seeing it play out in trailer footage is something else entirely. Mr. House is not like any other faction leader in this conflict. The NCR operates on the logic of civilization rebuilding itself. The Brotherhood operates on the logic of technology and power and control. The Legion operates on the logic of conquest and dominance. Even the Enclave, as shadowy and calculating as they are, operates within a recognizable framework of ideology and self-interest. But Mr. House operates on something different. He operates on pure vision. He has a specific picture of what the future should look like, and he has been waiting 200 years with inhuman patience to make it real. And now that he is awake and active and moving pieces on the board, every other faction has to account for a player who thinks on a completely different timescale than any of them. What the trailer shows us of New Vegas and Mr. House's influence spreading outward from it is visually stunning but also deeply unsettling in a way that sneaks up on you. Because New Vegas looks alive in a way the rest of the wasteland doesn't. There are lights, there is structure, there is something that from a distance almost resembles the world before the bombs. And that contrast with the burned and broken landscape surrounding it makes it look less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. A beautiful, glittering trap built by a man who has had centuries to perfect the art of making something dangerous look appealing. And I think that is exactly the point the show is making about Mr. House. He is not a villain in the traditional sense, and he is not a hero either. He is something the Wasteland has never encountered before at this scale. And Season 3 is going to force every single one of our main characters to decide what they think about him and what they